Now I'd like to move on and discuss the four markets that Fuqua is involved in.
The two most important markets are drugs and prostitution.
Cosmetics.
The cosmetic market, and number 4 is the hamburger market.
I'm going to touch briefly on shelter and agribusiness.
Only because I think you might be interested in hearing about such things. Now, Dan Bonert and Cindy, I know that you are probably watching now, and we're glad to have you here. If you have any questions, you can call me right now, even though I am on the air, at 377-5677. We've touched enough now on shelter and agribusiness, I think. It's time to move on to drugs and prostitution. As you know, I'm having a hard time paying my rent here, so I sure have begun dealing in just marijuana, and if you would be interested in buying some, you know where you can reach me. I've given my number once before, but I'll give it again. 377-5677. I'd like to show you these figures on prostitution. Most prostitutes move from state to state under the general freight category, and you can see that prostitutes have moved under all these categories, but general freight is the most popular. The other figures are somewhat inflated. Prostitution, as you can see, has increased greatly from 71 to 73. From 114, and this is hundreds of thousands, by the way. 114,000 to 140,000, 118,000 to 143,000, 143,000 to 207,000, and so on down the line. That is a lot of prostitutes, I agree. But, well, now it's time to move on to another subject. I don't know exactly what, but, well, maybe we can get back to this topic at a later date.
The future looks good for the trucking industry, though. Motor carriers increased their share of operating revenues for freight hauled from 43% in 1960 to 55% in 1973, mostly at the expense of rail carriers, which declined from 50% to 37% over the same period. Trucking has the unique ability to handle less than truckload freight. They can go more places than rail carriers, water carriers, airways, or pipelines, and is relatively inexpensive. Now, in the recreation industry, or the leisure time industry, Fuqua derived 47% of their sales from this area in 1968. The leisure time industry is made up of a wide variety of diversified businesses. For example, there are manufacturers of sporting goods and recreational vehicles. There's photography, motion pictures, recorded music, amusement parks, etc., etc. The common denominator of all these products and services is that they are all used by consumers in their spare time. One study claims that about 1/3 of Americans' time is free and unoccupied. Leisure time market grew rapidly in the 60s and early 70s due to a substantial rise in real disposable income. Recreational spending rose steadily from approximately $20 billion in 1962 to approximately $50 billion in 1972. Disposable income rose over the same period from approximately $25 billion to $56 billion. There has been a basic attitude change toward leisure nowadays. It's regarded as somewhat of a necessity. Indications are that the overall leisure market will grow at a rate at least as rapidly as real GNP. Now I'd like to show you some of the actual areas of the recreational industry that Fuqua is involved in. Aside from being involved in the manufacture of ski equipment, football equipment, boxing and billiard equipment, Fuqua is also involved in the manufacture of baseball equipment, basketball equipment, bowling equipment, golf equipment, and tennis equipment. The manufacture of recreational products is more sensitive to the condition of the economy than are entertainment service companies. Leisure hardware is often expensive and therefore sensitive to consumer demand, and consumer demand is affected by high inflation. Therefore, when real disposable income rises significantly, hardware sales will be good. Leisure services tend to do best during periods of economic slowdown because consumers substitute less expensive luxuries for more costly ones. Ladies and gentlemen, now we have a special treat for you. We have in our studios today Mr. J.B. Fuqua. Mr. Fuqua, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Jeff. Well, Hugh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, we're glad you're here. Now, I have a few questions for you, Mr. Fuqua.
Hugh.
I hear that you have a very complex type of theory or strategy or something or other on cash flow analysis or something like that. Perhaps you could explain that to our viewing audience.
Well, certainly. Actually, it's quite easy, Jeff. There are two types of businesses, cash cows and cash hogs. You can operate and grow as your cash grows, but each day you can also milk them. Cash hogs are different and have to be fed continually. What you do with a hog is feed them to a certain point and then send them to the slaughter.
Well, that must be what this diagram is all about. Perhaps you could explain this diagram to our viewing audience here.
That's very good. You see, you have here the cash cows.
That's the cash cow.
Right. And over here you have the cash hog.
Well, that makes things much clearer. Thank you very much. Now, what is your strategy when you're making acquisitions?
Well, my strategy is to build a major public company by acquiring existing profitable businesses, which had been developed by other people, and getting proven management along with these companies. My theory was that buying profits would be faster and less risky than growing our own profits.
I understand. Someone told me that you have five basic criteria for acquiring businesses.
Well, yes, I do.
Perhaps you could go into that.
They're right here. I like to stay in your basic industries. That's number one.
Number one.
Number two is I like to buy growth-minded companies.
I see.
With a good track record. Number three is I stay away from the glamour fields.
The glamour fields such as?
Cosmetics.
Okay.
And I like to keep the subsidiary intact and let them run their own show.
Okay.
And number five, I buy no business which completed in the low price end of its market.
That seems like excellent criteria to me. Might I ask you if you have any plans in the near future for acquisitions? You might give us some ideas. I notice you're wearing that hat there. Is that a clue?
Yes, indeed it is. Can I talk? And I have some acquisitions which I'm planning on getting there, Jeff.
And what would they be?
Well, I'm thinking about Sturm Ruger Company, Bic Pen, AOT, ADT.
Oh, you mean ADT?
ADT, KOA, and also the Boston Symphony Orchestra, as well as Funk's Hybrid and Lincoln.
Lincoln Electric. Well, that seems just fine. Thank you very much for being here today with us,
My pleasure,
Mr. Fuqua. May I call you JB?
Sure.
JB, thank you very much.
Bye. Bye, y'all.
Well, folks, that about wraps up my portion of the presentation. I'm going to pass things on now to Terry Caldwell. Good luck, Terry. Well, folks, that about wraps up our presentation. Group number 8 thanks you for watching it. It's been a great quarter, hasn't it? I know I've enjoyed it. And now group number 8 is going to spring for beers over at the Viking Bar immediately following class tonight. Hope to see you over there. Hey, we're having some fun now.